Welcome to the very last lesson of Chapter 2, Object-Oriented Swift with Bob the Developer. You will learn to create an object, only one object that exists everywhere, like I am, Bob the Developer. There's only one Bob the Developer in the world, right? And you can reach out to me anywhere in the world through social media, phone. You get the point. Welcome to Singleton with Bob the Developer. Here's a problem statement. Well, we don't have any problem statement. Here's why. In this lesson, let's talk about how to create a singleton, what is a singleton, and why we use them, and so what. Okay, so what is singleton? Well, singleton is just simply an object which is instantiated, meaning it is also initialized only exactly once. There's only one object. You can only create one object in the entire app. When you're using an app, there's only one object, or you're not allowed to create one more. Okay, so how to create one? First of all, I'm gonna use an example called account manager. Let's say you're making you're working with financial data or just some sort of database like a Google spreadsheet or Excel, and you want to have information about somebody. Let's say it contains a property called user information using tuple. One is ID Bob the Developer, and also password. This is my Korean phone number. If you call me, I probably will pick up as long as you send me a text, because I don't pick up any other phone numbers that it's not my contact. Because some people a lot of times they try to like scam you a lot, so I don't pick up. Anyway, that's not the point of this discussion. But anyway, so you also have this network method, right? What it does is you want to get information about the user. Sometimes you also want to get information about, you want to change the ID. Sometimes you want to change the password. So let's say just dummy method that interacts with the user information, okay? Of course, I try to be as practical as possible when just giving you a bunch of code that doesn't seem to make any practical sense. So, okay, so you can create an account manager like that, just like that, and create an object and you have access to user info. But the problem is you can create this many times, okay? But you want to only create one object. Why is that so? Because you want to only create one object when you're working with database, right? You don't want to create a bunch of object that does the same functionality. You just want to create one, and that thing controls the network, controls downloading the information about the user, controls downloading the profile picture. You just want to create one. You don't want to create a bunch, right? Because if you think about it, user information, if you create one more or a lot of object, what's happening is you have duplicate value of Bob the Dev. So sometimes if that object changes Bob the Developer to Bob Lee, and the other object it's gonna be still Bob Lee, still Bob the Developer. So you don't want to have any of those conflicts. So you want to create only one object. Okay. So how to do that? Well, this is how you do it. You want to create something called private init. Well, if you don't know what private init means, we're gonna learn a lot more in the later chapter of what's new in Swift. You're gonna learn about this is one of the access control. This prevents, when you add private, it prevents others from messing around with your code. So when you add private, you can be only initialized. This account manager can be only initialized within the block of this class where it is created. So we don't need to have any print statement. Let's just leave it like that. So if you try to account manager that like this, it's not gonna work. Why is that so? Because you can only create this account manager object within this class block. Okay. There are four other something like private, four other words like internal. You're gonna learn in later chapters. But for now, private means you're not allowed to do anything outside of the block of code where it is located. Yeah. Okay. So this is important for making only one object, because you don't want any other places. You don't want somebody in View Controller 1 to create this account manager. You don't want View Controller 2 to create this account manager. You only want to create one object of account manager that works with changing the name and downloading all the good stuff. So how to do that? Well, here's the magic. Here's the part. We learned about static property in the past, right? This is how you do it. static let and call it share instant, or you can call it whatever you want. You can call it singleton. You can call it the only object, the only loved one. And here's the magic. You're going to create an account manager right here. I know it looks quite weird, right? So when I first learned how to do singleton pattern, I thought it feels weird because you're making an object within the class definition. So, but this is what's happening. So you have access to when you account manager when you add share instant. Okay. So if you think about share instance, it is the object of account manager. So what does that mean? Account manager contains the user information and also contains this network, right? Share instant is an object of account manager. Okay, is an instant of account manager. So now you have this user info as well as ID right there, and boom. 1, 2, 3. All right, it's Bob the Div right there. Cool. Okay, so how can you make another object? How can you make two objects? Well, you cannot do that because simply you cannot make any other object. You cannot do that. So whenever you have a static account manager share instant, you are always referring to this top dog right there. You always refer to this object. So you have no choice but to use this object all the time, every day, every second, until this program ends, until your app breaks. Okay, until your phone breaks. So you might wonder, when is this object created? When is being created? Is it being created while you're doing this? Well, let's find out. How do you find out? Well, you can do this. This is being created. Let's be more interesting. Uncreated. So let's wait a moment. See whether this private init method get called. Okay, it is not showing right now. So how about we try to access this share instance? Account manager dot share instance. Let's see. Boom, on the bottom right there. It is only created when you have the first time access to this static property. Okay, this account manager object is being created the first time you accessed it. And then here's the funny part. Here's the best part actually. So let's say you are working with view controller 1, okay, view controller 1, that's a different page, a first page, and you have account manager share instant Bob info, right now is Bob the Div, but in view controller 2, you are still able to use this. Account manager share instant user info.id, it's Bob the Lee SJ, and in view controller 3, what's happening is, account manager share instant user info.id is now Bob Lee SJ. That's it. Singleton pattern is amazing. Here's why: because it exists everywhere. You only have reference. You only have one object. So whenever you are able to change the object, well, it doesn't matter whether in view controller 1, 2, or 3. Doesn't matter. Okay. So you might be thinking, oh, okay, how does the iOS ecosystem use this singleton pattern? Well, there are a couple of examples. I'm not going to go too in detail because we're going to cover in the next course. But UI application, right? If you probably know, UI application is simply an object. It's actually a singleton pattern. It exists everywhere. It exists every view controller. You have access to UI application, and in this object you are able to store a value. So you are able to use UI application to communicate between different view controller. That is not recommended, but you can do that because singleton pattern, again, the object exists only once and is not deallocated. It's not deallocated, so it exists everywhere. And also, one is user default. User default, it's a place where you store a bunch of data in iOS development in iOS. So you're able to store user information. You're able to store cookies. All you want to do in user default, and this object exists everywhere in view controller 1. Doesn't matter, navigation view controller, every view controller. So user default exists, and its notification is a way to communicate between view controller that things have happened. They use singleton pattern. So these are objects that exist to allow better communication. Again, So again, hope you can understand why we use singleton pattern. First of all, again, you don't want to create a bunch of object that contains this important information. You don't want the other object to you want to create a bunch of user info, and then when the user info is being updated to server, it's pain in the butt to update the other object. It's really hard to do that. So why not just create only one object contains user info, and that object does everything else: networking, downloading information about the changing password, changing ID, right? You just need only one instant of it, only just one object. And the rest, yeah, UI application. In this lesson, we haven't talked much about the downside of using a singleton, but in the next course, the UI kit fundamentals, again, the UI kit, right? This is UI kit, UI application, UI, it's not UI, but user default. These all belong to the UI kit framework, so you can learn a lot more about it. So as long as you understand how to create a singleton pattern and why we use them, good to go. See you guys in the next lesson, and bye-bye, and take care. And if you have any questions, comment below, and I'll be right there, or call me right here, okay? This is Korean, so you have to add, I think, 841010. So just call me up, text message me, and I'll be right there. All right, see you guys in the next lesson. Boom. You've learned the meaning of singleton pattern in programming. Think of me. Only my mom can initialize me, and there's only one Bob in the world. However, as I said before, often developers avoid using singleton pattern. When you're working with singleton, there's a problem with that, because since there's only one object that is being shared by everyone else's view controller, for example, and usually what happens is in a team, one person is responsible for that single view controller, and the other person for that, and the other person for that, and then the singleton is being mutated all the time by each single view controller, and become impossible to track this singleton state within it, because one can change the state at all time. If you are interested in learning about those APIs, well, I'm going to talk about in the next course called the UI kit fundamentals with Bob. You can be on the waiting list by signing up your name on the website. Since you've completed this chapter, I'll talk to you more in the next video.